In this video, we'll be explaining how to UV map a character. So in the previous three videos, we discussed how to model the character for a game creation to be integrated in like a video game engine. So this video will explain how to take that model and to UV map that to prepare for texturing, either in Photoshop, in 3ds Max, or another 3D painting program. So I've gone ahead and kind of cleaned up the model a little bit more, added more loops, more definition. I've also added some secondary objects that will be linked to the model when we're animating this. So I have some areas that will be teeth, and also have a tongue that will be moving around as well. So I refined some of the shapes, added some more loops to it. It's still a relatively low polygon character, so there's still a lot more detail I can add to it, but at least this is a good start to move into UV mapping. Okay, so the method I'm going to show here is the Pelt and Peel tools to UV mapping. So that way we can create as cleanest of a UV map and unwrapped object as possible. Every goal when we're UV mapping is to have no overlapping UVs. That's going to be the goal here as well. So we're going to model this in a non-symmetrical format. So what we need to do is any symmetry-based objects need to right-click and collapse all. So I do need to make sure all vertices are welded together that I want to be welded together. But then I do need to choose yes here and collapse everything so it's an edible poly. So this way I can have some texture on one shoulder that's different than the other shoulder. So this character doesn't really require that, but it's nice to go ahead if I have the time and room within the UV map to space out my UVs to allow for that in case I do want to make adjustments. Maybe there's going to be torn areas of the clothing or whatnot, or dirty areas of brush dirt or whatnot. Okay, so what we're going to do, we don't really need these image planes anymore, so I am going to select everything that I'm going to be UV mapping together, and let's choose hide unselected there, so the image plane is going to go away. So what I'm going to do is UV map all of these objects, the eyes, the teeth, the tongue, and the body all together at one time, so I can see all the UVs together. So what I need to do is select everything, go to the modifier list, and go to the Unwrap UVW modifier. This has the most options for us. So what we can go ahead and do is go ahead and create some green cut lines for us, or really the map seams for us, which aren't going to be the ones we're going to use. It's just how it goes ahead and UV maps them as a whole. The UVs are already set up for you, so this is just the basic process for that. Okay, so this way when I drag select everything, it shows me that my Unwrap UVW modifiers apply to all of them. When this is italicized, or modifier is italicized, that means the modifier is applied to multiple objects. So now I can go open up the UV editor, and you can see that all of my UVs are already in fact here. They're just not correctly done. They're all overlapping and they're not set up correctly. So I'm going to turn off the checker pattern so I can see the box. All the UVs must be UV mapped in this box. Okay, so we're going to run through the pelt mapping section. So I'm going to roll this out so we can see everything. So the peel and pelt tools are underneath here where it says channel, and underneath that says peel. So what I'm going to do is turn off the map seams. That's the final seams that we're going to use. They'll become visible and corrected after I use the Pelt and Peel tool. I want to keep peel seams on because that's how I create this. So basically what happens is I create these peel seams, and that's used to cut the body parts off. Okay, so I'm going to start with the larger objects and move to the smaller objects. So we're going to do the body, especially the torso, move our way out to the arms and legs and head, then move to smaller objects like the eyes and the teeth and so forth. So let's choose the body and choose hide and select it again. Let's select off of this and just have the body selected, and then hide unselected. So it hides the eyes and everything. We're going to UV map those together, but at a different time. Okay, so I'm going to use the pelt tools. Let's go in sub-object mode. And I'm going to use the seams tool. So the first one's edit seams. When I click on an edge, it selects that in a highlighted blue. So this is what a seam looks like. The second one's point to point, where I can skip on vertices, and I'll just select the next vertex, but it will skip and find the quickest path. The last way to do this is actually to select an edge, and then click on a red edge, or highlight it red, then I'll click on the convert edge selection to seams, which will convert that edge selection. So that's nice when I have loops, and then I choose a loop over here, and then I can choose edge seam there. So these are the ones I want to keep, and just show you the difference between the tools. Okay, so basically we need to break apart the different body parts that will make it difficult to UV map as one. There's different ways to do this, but what I'm going to do is break apart the body from the extremities, UV map the extremities separately. I'll still in the same UV map, but cut them apart. So what I'm going to do is, let's actually go into the edge mode, select one edge, and do a ring around each arm. So let's do that as well. We're going to break apart each leg also, so where the leg connects. Maybe let's do, it'll be kind of hard to do this one. That won't connect all the way around. That'll work. Here. Okay, so let's just continue around. Break apart that entire leg. This is the one wrong one. So let's go here. Oh, there he is. So it's important to make sure that we don't have seam selected, because any seam that will use that as a pelt seam. Neck page, peel seam. But we are actually off by one somehow. Still solid. It's okay. Let's just come down and back. Okay. Just have one side to that. Okay, there we go. We'll worry about the neck here in a second. So let's just go ahead and choose convert edges to seams, and then we want to break apart where the neck meets the body. So right there, the neck meets the clothing. Let's do loop. Let's just select all of that. Same thing there. So the loop is going to be around the neck also. And for that matter, I can just treat this as one onesie and you can have all this together. But since it's all weird forms, it might be better for me to just split apart the body around here. So let's try that. Let's loop that, and let's do C. Okay, so we're about the torso, then let's worry about the other stuff as well. Okay, so we can treat this just like a shirt. So the seams on a shirt go down the side as well. So let's move to the point-to-point tool. Let's come in here and let's select that point, and let's roll all the way down to our other seam that we have. We want to be able to flip the top or front part of the shirt away from the back. Do the same thing on this side. Okay, so that'll be good. So this is just like you're taking these seams and telling it to cut with scissors to split apart from the rest of it. Okay, the next step is actually go in polygon mode. Select one polygon. The choose this button right here, expand polygon selection of seam. So that should, if we have the seam set up correctly, only select what we want to. So here shows an example. We actually missed one edge in here to split apart the back part from the front. So let's actually go back to the seams tool, and let's select that one. And while we're at it, we're actually going to need to split apart this area as well. Well, then that should be pretty good since we have the back part there. So let's go back, and then now when we select one polygon mode, and then expand selection of seam, we shouldn't select the back part. Just make sure your seams go all the way around to where you want to select. Okay, so these next tools are actually a little simpler. So we just hit the pelt tool, pelt map here, and we're looking for a circular shape. We see circular shape with what's called the stretcher here, these red and white lines, and we're good. If we see oblong shapes and we don't have enough seams, the seams are in the wrong place. So I can try to click Start Pelt, and it might do a decent job, but if you look around the corners, it might not give enough room to fully stretch it all the way out. So let's undo that. Let's open up the pelt options. Let's choose Select Stretcher, and let's scale this out. So if I scale this out 2 or 3 times larger, that should give it enough room to be able to stretch this out correctly. So let's choose Select Pelt UVs, Start Pelt, and there you go. So that bottom section did a lot better now. Okay, so typically this is going to be the bottom of the character, and this is going to be the top of the character, but we'll have to see. Okay, so I can also try Relax tool. I just choose Relax. It doesn't really do a great job, but let's go back and let's go to Relax Settings. Let's try Polygon Angles and then Amount to 1. Actually did commit there, which is okay. Let's actually undo that. Let's go back into, maybe I hit Cancel. So let's repeat the process. Select Stretcher. Let's scale that out about twice as large. Let's do Start Pelt. Let's do Select Pelt UVs. Let's go back to the Relax tools, Polygon Angles, and then Amount to 1. So you see what it does? It tries to make the shape of the UVs look more like the shape of the actual geometry. Most of the time it actually will do a good job, but other times it will kind of flip over things around. So you kind of got to be careful using this. Let's commit. Typically what I do is I take the shapes, unwrap them. Let's go this down some. Move them outside of this UV space until no UVs are still in that UV space, and then move everything back in. So that did a pretty decent job there, not a terrible job. So let me click the select by element mode, so I'll have to just click once and move that around. So I might need to go make some fine-tune adjustments in these smaller little areas, but it still like it did a pretty good job. But it should do a decent job there. So let's move to someplace else. Let's move to an arm. Okay, so I do need to split apart where the clothing meets the skin. So right here on the inside, I might be better to do it from wireframe mode. So if I select that edge and do a loop, so there you go, that whole loop in there, and then let's do convert to edge seam. While we're at it, let's go ahead and break apart the hand. There's many different ways to do hands, but one easy way is to just follow one side of the hand and split one side off of the other, as far as the inside versus the outside. I'm just going to try to use the point to point, which allows me to click the points, and should do a pretty decent job on the line all the way around. Just make sure you're not selecting edge seams that you don't want to be selected. Back. So that's what we want right there, split the entire hand off, and then a seam down the middle. Okay, so we do the second arm the same exact way, and later on I'll skip through that process to show you the final output. Okay, so I also need to line down the length of the arm as well to unwrap what is like this rolled piece of paper. If you think of this like a rolled piece of paper, it's kind of what this arm shape is here. You also kind of need to go inside there. Okay, good. So I have a cut seam to cut off the clothing. I have one down the length of the arm, and also one all the way around the hand to make that easier. Okay, so now let's go back and let's UV map the arm, then UV map the hand. Same steps, pelt. There. Oh, looks like I only have one polygon selected, so let's see if we can undo some of that. And let's actually, you can also deselect seams by getting the seams and holding down Alt and deselect. So another good opportunity to kind of show mishaps that might happen. Let's make sure these two edges right here are seams. Might have undid that. Okay, so now I forgot to choose the expand polygon select the seam. Okay, now let's do pelt. Okay, circular shape looks pretty good. This isn't too difficult. We should be able to choose start pelt. That's pretty good. To stop, let's try relax polygon angles and amount to 1. Roughly, it looks better because it's more along the same shape as the body, the actual geometry. So let's move that out of the way. Rotate this, scale this down. So this way, you can move the UVs around where the body part is going to be. So let me turn off my element. So here's the front, and then there's the back. And so this is the right arm, so that should be a pretty good place to put the body part on. Let's do one part of the hand. Let's do expand face like the seam. Good. We're going to the inside. And let's go back to pelt. So this is going to be a shape that is going to be a little wonky. So that is actually unwrapped very nicely. A couple of issues on the corner. But it doesn't look like the hand. So let's try relax. And that does a little bit better job. But now I have a weird kind of angle with one of the fingers. So you might have to go in here. Let's see. Let's continue this down. But let's scale this down. Kind of move it in place here. Okay, so something like that. But go make sure there's no overlap in UVs, which there might be in some occasions. So what you might need to do is select some of these, and with the rotate tool, this is W, E, and R up here, move, rotate, scale, same thing, is to come in here to start moving some of these UVs around, and kind of rotating them back into place relatively what they should be. The thumb got, or let's see, no, this is the outer finger. So the outer finger got a little weird. So that's not too bad. I would go back and kind of clean things up a little more, but at least it's okay. So the thumb is over here and the other two fingers are here. So let's try the other side and see how well that one does. It should be pretty good as well. Do that. Start pelt. And then let's do start relax. See how that goes again. It's not doing too bad of a job, but sometimes it will create overlapping, so you might need to go back and fix that. Here's the back side of the hand. We can do like the back is relatively on the top. So that's pretty good. Okay, so later on I'll come back and just skip through the sections of doing the other arm. The other arm will be the same way. Really the legs are pretty close to being the same thing, so I do need to come and find inside the loop. Maybe we'll just go to the edge tool. Okay, we want the one on the inside, so that's the right one. So let's do that and let's convert that to an edge seam. We do need a seam down the length of the leg. So select that one and let's move it out. The reason we're doing the inside is because that's the area that's least visible. If the character is moving around, we're not going to look at the inside of the leg as much as the outside, so it's a good place to put a seam. We have to have a seam. Okay, so then there's a lot of different ways to do feet and toes and whatnot. We can break off each toe from that point of view. So let's select an edge. Let's do the loop. Okay, it is there. So sometimes it's kind of difficult to see from the angle. So that toe should be all right there. Maybe I'll change the idea. So instead of doing it there, I'll do exactly where the kind of claw-like nail is. Goes to the loop there now instead. That's a little better. So that way, there's a different texture versus the actual rest of the body. Okay, so really what we need to do is break apart the back of the ankle. This one, so these four. And then I'm going to need to create a loop around the bottom. So flatten that foot out. Possibly all the way down here. Yeah, let's do the same thing here. Maybe even go to the bottom of this. Maybe let's move to point to point. Well, let's actually go and convert those, and then we can move to point to point. So there's other ways to do this, but at least it's a pretty clean start. There we go. So the bottom of the foot's broken off, and then the toes, and then the back of the ankle. So I'll do the same thing for the other foot. Let's just go ahead and unwrap these sections. Expand face, select the seam. Pelt. Start pelt. And then let's do start relax. That should be pretty good. Commit. And let's move that out of the way. So this is the legs. Let's pull that down here, and let's do the same thing for these sections. Okay, so there's that. Start pelt. This is kind of a wonky area, so let's try to relax, see how that does. It does a pretty decent job. But the bottom of the foot's kind of weird. It's okay, but the bottom of the foot's a little weird. So I might come down and take the bottom of the foot. Let's go and make sure we have all of our loops set up and break that bottom of the foot. It looks like I missed one somewhere. I did. There it is. So this little loop right here. And then now I'll be able to do just the bottom of the foot and not the rest of it. Now it should be relatively easy to do. I can move that back down here as well. Turn element mode on, so that way we can scale all this down. Move this out of the way to the side so I know this is the bottom of the foot. And then there's the ankle, so maybe this might be a little larger. Let's turn the toes that way so I can know. Okay, so I can do each toe like I would do an arm or whatnot. So let's actually go back to point to point. And we can put a U shape down here. That's a good start. Good. Let's do the same thing here for all of these. Oh, by the way. So yeah, let's just continue the pattern. Put the loop on the right side. Okay, so now we can do each one of these separately. Good. And before I do anything else, because I probably have the same, roughly same texture for all of these, let's try to do the same thing. Start pelt, start relax. It's just repetition here, and they all should relatively look the same. So that I should be able to kind of overlap my UVs pretty nicely. Pretty close. Start pelt, start relax. So as long as you get in the habit or get in the practice of working with Pelt and Peel tools, these should be pretty easy to unwrap the character. There are other options, but this is definitely the cleanest way to do this. This definitely doesn't need to be that big, so let's just continue scaling that down a little bit. Okay, so I would repeat the same process for the other leg, and then also for the back of the body as well. So I probably would need to break this back torso off from the legs, so I would come back and I'll just show you where the seams will probably go here. Just select that edge, that one, and loop those around. So I'll probably break the legs off there. Then I'll need a seam point to point all the way back here on the other side. I don't want the top. On the back side is a decent idea. Probably need to break the legs apart some way, so something like that would be good. I might need a couple more seams vertically here for the butt area, but at least that's a good start. And then I would do the same process with the legs and everything as well. Okay, so let's jump up to the head. Then I'll fast forward as I complete the rest of the UVs for the body, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Pack everything back into the UV space. So there we have a pretty good chunk of the body already UV mapped, and then all we have to do is just scale them, rotate them, and place them in there. Okay, so the head might be a very difficult object, but if you break it down very similarly in the same method, it really can become very easy also. So we already have a loop around where the neck meets the clothing. What I really need to do is break apart any of these orifices. So the mouth, the eyes, and then also these ears, and then the top head shape there. So let's go ahead and break out the mouth. I don't know where the exact line is. Okay, so we might even be able to go to the edge. Select one and let's do loop. There we go, that's a good idea. Pretty simple. Let's do the same thing for both eyes. We're getting loops there, did we? Okay. That's fine. So let's go to the point to point. Sometimes I can't find loops. Geometry setup. That's why point to point's really nice. You can skip over a lot of polygons. So also let's break apart these ear tube like things. This one. And let's break apart the top one as well. So I don't really need to go that crazy. Let's do this one. If we texture with a 3D program, then it shouldn't be too big of a deal. These are split apart. Okay, so for the head, we don't want to seam down the middle because that's what we look at the most. Let's put the seam down the back side here. We can get just go ahead and create something here so I can see where this is. So I do need to make sure I have, it's kind of over the camera angle, that inside edge as well. Actually, I don't. I just need it down here since my seam is there. So we're good. Okay, so I'm going to put the seam down the back of the head, but also need to come up to the neck area, or the top of the head. And I might even need to extend this to some of the forehead. So you might just have to play around with it, but typically if it goes to a little bit on the forehead, it'll unwrap the back of the head a little bit better. So I'm not going to worry about the nose too much because that's going to be kind of a dark area, but you might want to break off the nose as well. Okay, so we're ready to unwrap the head. So there's the seams, any orifices, any extrusions, and then also we need one seam from the bottom of the neck to relatively the forehead. Okay, let's run through the same process. So let's go to the expand face select and make sure that it doesn't have any of those areas that we want to break apart selected. And now let's go back to the pelt tool. So that does a pretty good job of unwrapping. Okay, so let's go to the polygon angles underneath the relax tool. Amount to 1. See what it does there. So it didn't do that great of a job around the mouth area. It did a pretty good job everywhere else. So it kind of evens out everything. What I can do instead of just letting it go is to undo that and just click start, relax, and quick click again to stop it. So let's do that again. So it's actually scrunching some of the eyes up. I can go back and fix that, but what I'm trying to get is a smooth shape with the rest of the faces. So that looks pretty good without going too crazy. So sometimes it is very helpful. Sometimes the relax tool just kind of scrunches things up a little too much. Okay, so here's really where, let's just scale this down a lot. Here's really where we have to come in with some of the UV tools, manually move in some of these vertices. Let's make this really large. Okay, so top of the head did pretty good. The ear holes. The eyes actually didn't do too bad here. So really all I need to do is just move, turn off select by element. Just move some of these around. So let's move that in just a little bit. Don't want this too crazy. This one's a little bit pinched. A little bit pinched. So that's not too bad, but the mouth shape is where we need to go back and kind of fix some areas a little bit. And this is just another step that might need to be in conjunction with after we get the texture created as far as how to figure out how to move things around a little better. We just want to make sure there's no overlapping. That's not bad there. Okay, so it could be better, but at least that's a good start. Let's minimize that a little bit. Okay, so let's work on the other orifices. Okay, so let's I shouldn't have to do a whole lot here. It's like a spherical shape. Pretty good. Might have some overlapping. That should clear most of it out. Let's move this over here where the mouth would be. Even smaller than that. But let's take a look at it. Let's rotate a little. So I do have some overlapping here. So just once again, let's go back with the move tool. Make sure we don't have any overlap, and that's a little close. This is the inside of the mouth, the very back of it. Not too bad. Okay, so then I'm going to do the same thing. Let's open that back up. I'll do the same thing for the other sections, the eyes. To do them all one at a time. This should be pretty simple as well. So this sometimes happens when you don't have enough UV edges to it. So we might actually need to go in and add another UV seam. Weird camera angle. All the way around, and we need to break apart that outer edge. So that should do a lot better. Okay, so let's go back. Let's try now. That looks a lot better. See, circular shape. There you go. Relax that a little more. Pretty good. Okay, let's move it out of the way and get the other eye set up. Okay, so I just kind of took this, went all the way back, went up, and then went around. Because this is a 3D shape, that's what's giving me the issue. Try again. Let's do that. Pretty good. Relax. Pretty good. And then now I can kind of move this back. This is only inside, so it's not going to be too big of a deal. So this is really only an area where we can have overlapping UVs, where the texture really can be the same. Okay, so we can treat these ears and stuff like that just like an appendage. So what I need to do is find the seam. Relatively on the bottom is a better choice. Follow that all the way around, and then let's create another U shape like we did for inside the eye for that as well. So let's follow that around as well for the other ones. And then we're just going to repeat the same process that we've done before. So I think we will go ahead and speed this up, finish out the UVs. We'll come back and pack them onto the UV set. Okay, what I want to show you was the quick peel mode. So here's where the peel buttons come into play. So after I set up all my seams, what I can do is use the quick peel button. And not the peel mode, but the quick peel button. And as long as your seams are set up correctly, it's going to unwrap as well as relax at the same time. So what if I just use the pelt tool, and if I do start, pelt, and relax, that's going to take time, especially if we have small objects. So what I do instead is from those shapes, let's just drag select everything here. The rest of the shapes I need to unwrap, all I have to do is click quick peel, and that should unwrap everything for me. So I have all these small pieces set up correctly, and they're all in line. You know, there's the foot, there's the bottom of the foot. I can, maybe they're overlapping, and I can just move them away. There's a leg that goes with that foot. And this should do a pretty decent job for you. I missed the toes, because the toes were sitting there as well. So there's the 3 toes, or the claws for the toes, I guess. Let's move that here. Let's go look at this other leg. So that's the other back leg. So it does try to organize, but some of that is overlapping. There we go. Let's just kind of be congruent with everything. There we go. Take a look at the rest of it. So here's the back kind of torso, middle torso area. And here's my other front leg. Toes. So now I can really organize things, you know, relatively how I had them before. So this is really large compared to the other leg I did. So there we go. And I actually put my toes on top of one another over here. So what I can do is just come over here and let's do the same thing. Now these are unwrapped a little differently. but they're not going to have nearly as detailed of a texture map as what some other pieces are. So those can definitely be overlapping, even slightly off, because that section will just be a small little color, maybe a little detail to them, but not too much. And I can always go back and readjust these afterwards. But let's take a look at everything. So I now have a pretty good UV map. That's what that peel tool does. It does pelt and relax at the same time for you. It actually does a really good job. You still need to go back through and make sure there's no overlapping areas, which most of the time it shouldn't, as long as you have your seam set up correctly. But now I'm ready to crunch everything into the 0 to 1 UV space, which is what gets exported out. So we'll do that, and that'll kind of wrap up everything. So I'm just going to fast forward through this last section of getting all these pieces into the space correctly. You do want to think about texturing as far as what are the larger objects, and then what needs to have more textural detail. So larger objects and smaller objects need more detail. You need to take up more space in the UV section. So I'm also going to go back and unwrap the eyes, the mouth, or as far as the teeth, so unhide these. The eyes, the teeth, and then the tongue, and then UV map them into this as well before I pack everything in there. So those are done the same exact way. So that should wrap up the video. We'll come back and kind of say a couple final notes before we go to texturing, but this will be it for this video. Okay, so I think we'll wrap up here. So we have a pretty good packed in group of UVs. The idea with any type of UVN is to be able to get as little amount of shells as possible within the detail that we need. So things like the face, the torso, the arms and legs. Here's the arms and legs. And then the eyes, that would need a good amount of detail. Need to be the larger shapes. The smaller shapes like the mouth, and then down here where the feet are, since they're smaller on the model, probably don't need as highly detailed of a texture. We could also split apart the head from the body altogether and have the head and all the accessories like the mouth and the ears and things like that be on its own map to give more room for the body textures, which kind of depends on the purpose. But we're going to UV map this all together with one body form, so that way the entire character is UV mapped together. We'll only need one texture map for the diffuse and the other channels as well. So that's a good start. You can take a look at how my UVs are set up here. We can even go into use some of the peel mode options, refine some of the tools, but that's at least a good blocked out version to allow you to be able to refine these pretty easily with all the major shapes. Using Pelt and Peel mode, hopefully this was helpful for any kind of project that you might be working on. So the next step we'll do is taking this into Photoshop for texturing, and then even using 3ds Max and another 3D package to texture in 3D. So that'll wrap it up for this video on UV mapping.